Hello ladies, let's talk about walking and running as a means of exercise, pros and cons. As always, I will start with the cons, get those over and done with before I tell you about how great it is. So this was a tough one, I admit. It's difficult to think of any cons to walking and running, particularly walking. Running does have a few more risks. Let's talk about health issues to start with. Um, there can be risks if you are diabetic, particularly with regards to the feet. Diabetics are more prone to getting foot sores, blisters, things like that, which due to their poor circulation and high blood sugar levels can then be very difficult, if not impossible, to heal, and can cause some big risks there. So that's not to say that everybody with diabetes can't walk or run. It depends on the severity of your condition, um, and also good supportive cushioned footwear is a must for that. So definitely speak to your medical experts first before embarking on anything like that if you have diabetes. Um, if you have gait or stability issues, obviously that will carry greater risks. So here I'm thinking probably more on the walking rather than the running. I would assume if you were that bad, you probably wouldn't entertain running. And I'm thinking probably mostly for older ladies, really. Start to get a little bit less stable as they're getting older. There could be risks there of trips and falls, so we need to watch out for that. If you've had a previous injury, a badly sprained ankle or something like that, that could obviously impact on the way that you walk, the way that you run, and again could put you at higher risk of injury, not only in the foot or the place where the injury is, but through misalignments that could then come up into your knees or into your your hips. So it's important to think about those kind of things as well. If you have bad osteoarthritis, it may not be a wise idea to run. So if you've got, for example, knees and you've been told that you've lost all or most of your cartilage and you're basically bone on bone, it's probably not a good idea to add a lot of impact into that. So again, seek medical advice there before you embark on that. So those are kind of the health issues. Injuries, particularly with running, but also with walking, there is a risk of injury. That would come from, again, potentially incorrect footwear. So especially if you're going to start running, I would advise that you go to a place such as Runner's World, where they will give you gait analysis before finding the right pair of running shoes for you. So they put you on a treadmill, they've got all posh cameras and things set up, and they'll look at how your foot lands as you walk and run. They'll be able to tell whether you pronate or supinate with your feet. And they can offer you the right trainers that will offer you the right support for your particular foot type and your gait. So that's well worth doing if you're thinking about doing running in particular, but it could also be of benefit for walking. Too much too soon. This is probably the most common reason for injury, apart from trips and falls, for runners. I think, I'm going to go out running. Yeah, great. I'm going to do it every day. Every morning I'm going to get up and I'm going to do half an hour. I'm going to do a mile. It's too much. They've done nothing. And then they're going straight into that. The body's not used to it. The body's not prepped for it. It can't handle it. And something gives. Okay, so advice is if you are going to start running in particular, but even walking, don't go from nothing to 10-mile walks. Build it up slowly. Okay, start with, depending on your level, it may even be a 10-minute walk, half an hour walk. Find where you are. If you've done no walking, you need to start real small. If you're a fairly active person anyway, you might be able to get away with a little bit more. I would recommend starting on nice even surfaces, so maybe pavements, tarmacs, walking paths, cycle paths, things like that, before then venturing into more uneven surfaces, like maybe walking over the fields and over the woods and things like that, where there's more risk of ankle twists and turns, stresses on the knees, things like that. That said, once you progress to that level, those uneven surfaces are going to give you a lot of benefits. So they're really going to help to strengthen up your joints and the ligaments surrounding the joints. But don't go in too much too soon. Couch to 5K is a good program, but even that can be too much too soon for some people. So use it as guidance when it's telling you to up your levels each week. If that's feeling like a lot, stay at the same level for a couple of weeks or a couple of sessions before making the move onto the next one. Okay, you know your body, so get it right for yourself. So what else are the cons? So we talked about the kind of the injuries, we talked about the health risks, personal kind of things, things that might put you off. So the weather is probably the biggest one, particularly in this country. And we spend probably 3/4 of the year moaning that it's cold and it's wet, and we'll start doing it when the weather gets better, and then before you know it, it's too hot and we don't want to go out because it's too hot. So there's probably about 3 days of the year in England when the weather is actually nice, right for running and walking. So my personal advice would be, do not wait for the weather, because you will wait a long time, but I can understand why that might put you off. Ranulph Fiennes is a famous explorer, and he's quoted as saying, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing." And that's probably my philosophy. So, if you can afford it, go and get the right clothes, get the waterproofs, and just get out there. It will do you good. The dark nights, dark mornings is also another issue for us in the winter, obviously. And with that comes risks of personal safety. So you may need to think about where you're choosing to walk, depending on where you live, what your community is like. You may also want to think about, avoiding the sort of maybe darker, more enclosed paths and things like that. Maybe not walking through the woods. So that might limit your options a little bit. You might have to be a little bit smarter. Of course, you can always walk or run on a treadmill. So you may have a treadmill at home, or you may choose to use one in the gym, and that could provide solutions there, particularly through the darker and wetter months. The only other con I can think of, this relates to lots and lots of long, kind of slow runs. We're talking sort of probably 10k upwards. So if you were to decide you were going to do like a 10k race or a half marathon or something like that, and you were putting in a lot of training for that, that can come with some hormonal responses. It can actually elevate your cortisol levels, your stress hormones, because running for a long time, long distance, does put stress on the body. Okay, so if you're doing it, it's really important that you get the recovery time in as well. If you're doing lots and lots of long, slow, steady running, you're going to have lots and lots, potentially, of elevated cortisol. Okay, as well as being the stress hormone, it's also one of the hormones responsible for weight gain. So if you're thinking of doing lots of running for weight loss, it may not be the answer for you. So think about that carefully. So those are the cons. Pros, masses of pros. Okay, let's talk health. So it can improve your circulation, it can improve and lower your blood pressure. It can lower your blood sugars, particularly if you go for a walk after eating, like your big evening meal or something like that. Go for a walk 30-45 minutes afterwards, and studies show that it will lower your blood sugars down that will have been elevated from the food that you've just eaten. So all of those benefits lead into then a reduced risk of heart disease and stroke. It can also help to manage your diabetes symptoms. It will strengthen your bones, so it's a weight-bearing exercise. So provided that you're medically cleared with any issues that you've got around your bones and your joints, it can help to strengthen them, keep them nice and strong. Running in particular is obviously weight bearing. There's lots of myths around how running is bad for your joints, bad for your knees. Weight bearing exercises are good for joints, providing that we're not bone on bone. They help to reduce risk of osteoporosis. So this is different to osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis is where your bones are wearing away around the edges. You've probably lost cartilage, you've lost the soft tissue around the joints. Now you've got bone on bone, it's rubbing, grinding. That's osteoarthritis. Osteoporosis is where we're losing density in the bone. Okay, so if you think of your bone is actually like a sponge-like structure, there's lots of tiny little holes in it. And as we age, particularly as women, particularly after the menopause, those holes start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So our bone ends up more holes, less bone. Because of that, obviously the structure then becomes weaker. We become more prone to falls and fractures. So weight-bearing exercises actually create density. So they create more bone, less holes for a nice strong bone, good strong structure. Okay. It can help arthritis. So again, contrary to common myths where we think, oh, I've got arthritis, I better sit still, better not do anything. Walking in particular is very, very good for arthritis because it helps to get synovial fluids flowing around the joints. Okay, so your ligaments, cartilage and tissues like that has very, very minimal blood flow. So the way that it gets its nutrients is through the synovial fluid. When we move around, what happens is our cartilages are squishing like this, and it actually releases synovial fluid. It loosens it up. It's like oil in your car. So when the oil is cold, it's quite sticky, quite not solid, but a lot thicker and gooier and doesn't really move that much. When your engine warms up, the oil warms up and it becomes more liquid, almost like water, and it flows around your engine parts much more easily. That's what happens with the synovial fluid in your joints. So it's lubricating them, and that can help to ease your arthritis symptoms. Walking again, we talked earlier about risk from poor gait or poor stability issues. It can, on the flip side of that, improve your balance and improve your stability and proprioception, which is about how you perceive your body in the space around you. Again, depending on what kind of symptoms you've got and how bad your balance is, it may be wiser perhaps to start on a treadmill, start where you've got supervision, or if you're outside, making sure it is a very flat, stable surface where there's not too many risks of tripping and falling, and you can build your way up. But yeah, it can improve your balance. Let's talk about personal stuff, sort of mental well-being kind of things. So it can help to clear your mind and organise your thoughts. I know it, I love this when I'm running. It's one of the reasons I do it. I'm the kind of person that gets really, really easily distracted. I'll have a book in one hand, a phone in the other hand whilst watching the telly. You know, I'm always trying to do 10 different things. So I find that walking, running, because you can't really, you might be able to look at your phone, but it's probably not the wisest thing to do. You can't really look at anything else when you're doing it. So it forces you into your own mind. And definitely I know I've done some of my best thinking when I've been walking or running. get my thoughts into order, come up with my best plans. So it's really good for that. It can be quite social, running and walking, probably walking more so because there's a bit more time to chat. But even with running, you know, you can go to running clubs, meet people with similar kind of goals, and that kind of thing. There are plenty of walking groups around. If you want to know more about those, you know, drop me a message and I can tell you about walking groups for all different ages and abilities. And again, so that can be really social. I've been involved with some of those in the past, and it's great for people just to, you know, people are meeting up every week, going for their little walks. So, you know, they don't know each other outside of the walks, but, you know, through that they know everything about each other's life. Oh, how's your daughter? How's your dog? Blah, blah, blah. You know, and so that's really great way to make friends. And again, it's kind of like-minded people, so that's really good. If you're outside, so not on the treadmill, getting outside, particularly if you can get into nature, so get where there's grass, where there's trees, and even better where there's water, preferably running water. You will then subject yourself to negative ions. Despite the word negative, they're the good ions. Positive ions are bad. So negative ions are brilliant for your body. They give you a rush of endorphins. They will help to boost your immune system. They will make you feel better. They're good for your skin, for your hair, for your breathing. So these are things, if you think about if you've ever stood next to a waterfall, or even when you're out in the rain, and that smell, that just, and it feels amazing, that's negative ions. And you can get it by the sea as well when you've got those crashing waves, all those kind of things. That's negative ions, and they're very, very good for you. And they help to balance off the positive ions that we get when we're stuck indoors, when we're around a lot of electrical equipment. So if you work on computers all day, getting outside, getting some negative ions is a really good thing to do. You may have spotted my bracelet. This actually also releases negative ions as well. So yeah, boost your endorphins. Any exercise boosts your endorphins. Again, add that into the outside element, and we're getting that feel-good factor, so it's boosting your mood. It will boost your energy levels. So even though you might think to yourself, I haven't got the energy to go for a walk, you'll actually find if you go for the walk, you'll come back and you'll have more energy than before you went out. And you'll think, oh, now I could have gone for a longer walk. I don't want to go out again now. So it can really boost your energy when you feel like you don't have any. And yeah, so it boosts your immune system through all of the cardiovascular effects, through the negative ions, through the being outdoors, through the boost in moods. So masses of benefits for both running and walking. Just make sure you're building up gradually if you haven't done much of it in the past. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. There are very, very few people in the world that I would not recommend walking and running to. And I think I mentioned the other day Dr. David Perlmutter, who is a leading expert in Alzheimer's, said if he was going to give you one solution and one way to reduce your risk of mental decline and your risk of Alzheimer's, his one top tip would be to buy a pair of trainers and get walking, get running. So if that doesn't do it for you, I don't know what will. So yes, brilliant form of exercise. Get outside, get walking, get running as much as you can.